Welcome to another episode of Mastering Cybersecurity, developed by BareMetalCyber.com. Let's dive in. An immutable backup is often described as a backup that cannot be changed, but that shorthand can create two dangerous misunderstandings. First, immutability usually applies for a defined retention period rather than forever. Second, a backup that cannot be altered is not automatically complete, usable, or capable of restoring the systems an organization needs. The practical question is therefore not simply whether a backup is immutable. The better question is whether protected recovery data remains beyond an attacker's ability to change or delete, while still being available and proven to work when recovery is required. By the end of this episode, you should be able to explain what makes a backup immutable, how that protection reduces certain ransomware and insider risks, how it differs from related backup controls, and why regular restoration testing remains essential. An immutable backup is a protected copy of data that cannot be modified or deleted during a specified retention period. The protection may be enforced by storage technology, a cloud service, a dedicated backup platform, or a combination of technical and administrative controls. Immutability protects the integrity and continued existence of the stored recovery copy, not the health of the original system, and not the correctness of the data that was backed up. That distinction is the foundation of the topic. A conventional backup may be readable and recoverable, yet still vulnerable to an administrator account that can erase it. An immutable backup limits that ability by making the retention rule stronger than ordinary permissions. The result is a recovery copy that is harder for ransomware, a malicious insider, or a compromised privileged account to destroy before the organization can use it. The protection works by separating ordinary access from the authority to alter retained backup objects. In many implementations, the system records backup data and then applies a retention lock that prevents changes or deletion until a stated date or period has passed. Some platforms use write once, read many, WARM, which means data can be written and later read, but not rewritten during the protected interval. Other systems use object locking features, hardened repositories, or retention policies enforced outside the backup administrator's normal control. The exact mechanism differs, but the security principle is consistent. A user who can schedule jobs or restore files should not automatically be able to remove protected recovery points. Immutability is strongest when the rule is enforced by the storage layer or another independent control, rather than by a setting that the same compromised account can simply turn off.
Ransomware often tries to weaken recovery before it finishes disrupting production systems. Attackers may search for backup consoles, delete recovery points, encrypt backup repositories, change retention settings, or steal privileged credentials that provide broad control over the backup environment. An immutable copy interferes with that part of the attack because previously protected data remains unavailable for alteration or deletion until its retention period ends. The same protection matters when an administrator account is compromised, even if the attacker never deploys ransomware. Powerful accounts are useful operationally, but they also concentrate risk. If one account can manage production, backups, retention, and deletion, losing that account may expose every layer at once. Immutability reduces the damage that a compromised administrator can cause, especially when retention controls are separated from routine backup management and supported by strong identity, logging, and approval practices.
Immutability is not the same as versioning, snapshots, read-only permissions, or ordinary file protection. Versioning keeps multiple states of data, but those versions may still be deleted by an authorized account. A snapshot captures the state of a system or storage volume at a point in time, yet many snapshots remain dependent on the same platform and privileges as the live environment. Read-only access prevents a particular user or process from writing, but someone with higher authority may be able to reverse that permission. Immutability goes further by restricting change and deletion according to a retention rule that is meant to resist ordinary administrative action. These related controls can support recovery, and they may be used together, but they answer different questions. A snapshot asks what the system looked like at a moment in time. Immutability asks whether the protected recovery copy can be changed or removed before its retention obligation expires. An immutable backup is also different from an offline or air-gapped backup, although the protections can complement each other. An offline backup is disconnected from the systems that might attack it, while an air gap creates stronger separation between the backup and the operational environment. Immutability allows a backup to remain online or accessible for management, while restricting modification and deletion. That can improve recovery speed and operational convenience, but it also means the backup platform may still face risks involving availability, authentication, network exposure, and service failure. An offline copy may resist remote attack because it is not connected, yet it can still be physically damaged, misplaced, or outdated. A mature recovery design may combine immutable online copies with separated or offline copies. The important point is that no single label replaces a layered backup strategy built around different failure conditions.
The retention period defines how long the protection lasts, so choosing it is a security and operational decision rather than a cosmetic setting. A period that is too short may expire before an intrusion is discovered, allowing an attacker to wait until protected copies become deletable. A period that is extremely long may create storage, legal, privacy, and lifecycle problems because data cannot be removed even when there is a legitimate reason to do so. Retention should reflect how long the organization may need to look back, how quickly incidents are usually detected, what recovery points are required, and what obligations apply to the data. The design must also account for capacity. Immutable storage continues to accumulate protected data until expiration, so poor planning can create cost or space pressure. The objective is not to retain everything forever. It is to preserve trustworthy recovery points for a deliberate and defensible period.
We'll pause briefly for a transparent promotional message. This episode is brought to you by the Bare Metal Cyber Academy. The Academy provides a place for people who want to continue developing practical cybersecurity knowledge through clear, structured education. You can visit DailyCyber.News to explore the Academy and see the learning opportunities currently available. Topics such as backup resilience become more useful when you can connect the technical control to identity, risk, operations, and recovery planning. The goal is steady professional development without exaggerated promises or shortcuts. Now, let's return to immutable backups and the work required to prove that protected data can support a real recovery. Immutability protects against unauthorized change and deletion, but it does not correct bad source data or a failed backup process. If corrupted, encrypted, incomplete, or misconfigured data is copied into an immutable repository, the repository may preserve the problem perfectly. A backup job can report success while omitting an application component, encryption key, configuration file, dependency, or database transaction needed for a complete restoration. The protected copy may also be unavailable because of a service outage, damaged media, lost credentials, unsupported software, or a failed connection between the backup platform and the recovery environment. Immutability therefore answers a narrow but important question about alteration and deletion. It does not answer whether the data is current enough, whether every required component was captured, whether the restoration sequence is understood, or whether the organization can recover within an acceptable period.
Testing is what turns a protected backup into evidence of recoverability. A meaningful test restores data from the backup and verifies that the restored information is complete, readable, consistent, and usable by the system or process that depends on it. Merely seeing a successful backup status is not enough, because the status may confirm only that data was transferred, not that the entire recovery chain works. Restoration testing can reveal missing permissions, incompatible software versions, damaged indexes, expired certificates, unavailable keys, undocumented dependencies, and incorrect recovery procedures. It also shows whether the people responsible for recovery can obtain the required access without relying on the same accounts or systems that may be compromised during an incident. The test should produce evidence, not confidence based on assumption. Recovery logs, validation results, timing, errors, and corrective actions provide a defensible record of what actually worked.
Different forms of testing answer different recovery questions. A file-level restore confirms that individual files can be retrieved, but it does not prove that a complete application will run. A database restore can validate data integrity and transaction consistency, yet it may not confirm that connected services, identities, network settings, and application dependencies are available. A full system recovery test examines a broader set of components and often exposes coordination problems that smaller tests miss. Organizations may also test recovery in an isolated environment, so restored systems do not reconnect to production before they are verified as clean. The frequency and scope should match the importance of the system and the speed at which the environment changes. Testing should not be treated as a one-time installation task. New applications, configurations, encryption methods, access models, and dependencies can make a previously successful procedure fail later.
The administrative design around immutability matters as much as the storage feature itself. Separate backup administration from broader system administration when practical, and avoid allowing one identity to control production data, backup policies, retention locks, and deletion. Strong authentication, narrowly assigned privileges, independent logging, and alerts for policy changes make it harder for a compromised account to undermine recovery. Retention changes should be governed because an attacker may try to shorten future protection even when existing copies remain locked. The design must also support the organization's recovery objectives. The Recovery Point Objective, RPO, describes how much recent data loss can be tolerated, while the Recovery Time Objective, RTO, describes how quickly a service should be restored. Immutability does not guarantee that backups occur often enough to meet the RPO or that restoration is fast enough to meet the RTO. Backup schedules, storage locations, access controls, staffing, and testing must support the same recovery objectives. Another common misunderstanding is that immutability allows an organization to relax prevention, detection, or incident response. It does not. Immutable backups are a recovery control, and recovery becomes necessary after other controls have failed to prevent disruption or data loss. Attackers may still steal information, damage live systems, interrupt services, compromise identities, and remain present in the environment. Restoring without understanding the cause of the incident can reintroduce the same weakness or reconnect systems to an active threat. Recovery data may also contain malicious changes that occurred before the chosen backup point, which makes timeline analysis and clean point selection important. The backup strategy should support incident response rather than replace it. Defenders still need monitoring, identity protection, network controls, secure configuration, vulnerability management, and a process for deciding which recovery point can be trusted. A practical way to evaluate an immutable backup is to test 4 connected claims in plain language. Confirm that the backup copy cannot be changed or deleted by ordinary administrators during the stated retention period. Confirm that the retention control itself cannot be weakened through the same credentials, console, or management path used for daily operations. Confirm that the protected copy contains every component needed for recovery, including data, configurations, keys, dependencies, and documented procedures where applicable. Finally, perform a restoration and measure whether the result is clean, complete, usable, and timely enough for the supported service. These checks should be based on evidence from configuration review, access testing, logs, restoration results, and documented corrective actions. When one claim fails, the organization has identified a specific weakness to fix rather than relying on the general statement that backups are immutable. An immutable backup is a recovery copy that cannot be changed or deleted during a defined retention period, even when an attacker or compromised administrator gains powerful access elsewhere. Its value comes from preserving data that ransomware and privileged misuse might otherwise destroy, but the control is intentionally narrow. It does not guarantee that the backup contains good data, includes every required component, remains available, or can restore operations within the needed time. That is why immutability and testing belong together. Immutability protects the recovery copy from alteration. Restoration testing proves whether that copy can actually support recovery. The sound decision is to treat immutability as one layer in a broader design that includes separated authority, deliberate retention, protected access, multiple recovery options, and recurring tests. A backup earns trust when its protection is enforced and its recovery capability has been demonstrated. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.